Now, although there has been some struggles in there, Arsenal started the season with 2 wins out of 2 and looked good going into match day 3. Now, one of the players that I think is underrated within the football world is Jurrien Timber. And after 2 goals and an assist against Leeds, but overall an outstanding performance in and out of possession, I think it is time we finally analyse how big of a role he plays of this team. So let's get into it. Now, I think it's only fair that we make a video about Jurrien Timber because not only did he obviously get the flashy 3 goal contributions in this game, which for a fullback is absolutely absurd, I think that he is still our #1 right back option, and when he is fully fit is literally one of the best players at the club, and I personally think the best right back in the Premier League quite easily over a lot of other players. Now, everyone knows how important our fullbacks are to Arsenal's attack. We talked about Calafiori last week in detail, and this week I do want to talk about Timber as well, because how we tick, how we move, how we attack, I think is very dependent on these 2 players specifically more than a lot of the attackers actually on the pitch. Now, the first real example that I kind of wanted to get into in this video is about how Timber has been using these rotations with Zubimendi and Odegaard to keep finding space within the team. Now, it's no secret that Timber will easily pick up these attacking positions, very much like Calafiori in terms of maybe that chaotic nature, but he's a lot more refined. He's someone that is basically going to cover for positions that other players aren't in, and he will have the initiative to make them runs, especially overlapping if he has to, but they're not going to be with the intention of getting into the box. They're more going to be to help and support other players, being that recovery player there, rather than being that real necessary player that gets in. Now, a lot of the times we saw these sort of situations when Odegaard was on the pitch against Leeds in that first half. Odegaard would come outside the block yet again to build up, and we said even before that obviously Zubimendi would probably do a lot of that so Odegaard wouldn't have to, but actually what is happening is much more different. Now, there's loads of different times that this happens, but in this example which happened in the game I want to speak about. Now, in this moment, Woklz kind of moves this way to bring the defender here. This is a common practice that Arsenal use with Havertz even, to try and get this space into the middle between the fullback and the centre-back. Now, obviously Saka goes really out wide here, and sometimes you'll see other players do this, mostly Timber to be honest, but Saka will be that wide player and kind of drag players, at least Gudmundsson, to try and get him as much close to him, so that gap opens up even more. Now, Zubimendi a few times in this game did make this run into this area. He actually sat here, he waited, and they had to have people go and cover him because they couldn't just have a player free in this area. And from this graphic you can see it's quite obvious where that problem is, and they have to go quickly on Odegaard to stop that even happening. However, something that I think is going to be a big usage of Arsenal is obviously Zubimendi and Rice are going to keep rotating and keep moving, but Zubimendi comes deeper in these positions here and Timber instantly goes and makes this run. This means that some player has to cover him, and as you can see, it usually will have to be this extra midfielder inside here, giving us space in the centre of the park where you could always see some of the players come inside. In this instance, Calafiori was out wide, but you could always see him come in there, or Rice come into this space to be asking for the ball. Now, the reason why this is really interesting of how Arsenal work with it is because of how quick that we need to be in these areas to make real impact, and we are starting to get to that level. You know, Odegaard can put the ball into a Zubimendi if he's confident enough, but it's more about the movements between all 4 of them. If Timber makes this run and it doesn't quite play off, we don't pass the ball, everyone rotates. Timber will come around, Saka will go more centrally, maybe Odegaard would go about here, and you could start to see this sort of movement. Zubimendi sometimes joined in with these movements as well when Odegaard was really dictating from these deeper positions, but not all the time. Sometimes he is going to be that player that can have the ball and slip the ball through, getting in these key areas. And a few times we saw that actually with Zubimendi picking the ball here and trying to feed Woklz in central areas, but unfortunately it didn't work. It's very congested. Woklz is still trying with that motion. And it's not just this side. We use this really well throughout the team to try and keep moving players around and keeping it fresh within the starting lineup. You know, you see when Timber comes back into these deeper areas, Calafiori will then move into more central access areas, getting up the pitch and being that little sort of secondary striker in the left-hand side. But times where Calafiori is deeper and we're kind of building up quickly on this right side, you will see Timber go into them sort of right side positions and ask the ball, but not always want it, to kind of be that guy that ticks things along and just creates a player and moves the player away from that moment. He's not really like a Ben White in these attacking situations where you really want him having the ball, but if he does have the ball, he will be able to do something with it, probably pass it off, but he's more of a guy that ticks things along, a little bit like Marino in them tighter areas. Now, in terms of attack and work as well, that is his sort of play with inside the space, but I want to talk about his space on the overlap because that is also a big factor. You know, we talk about real overlaps being like Mascara and White, where they have that really good run late, which gives that player away from someone like Saka who can even feed the ball in or cross it in, and that's how to break down low blocks quite easily. Now, with Timber, you have to be a little bit more intelligent because he's not going to be that sort of really good overlapping runner in attack. He's a little bit more conservative, a little bit more of a recovery player. That's what he wants to do. Now, what we did with this was when he went to this overlapping position, which he did a couple of times throughout the game, this was mostly when we had the ball down the left-hand side. He would kind of sit in the center a bit in the half space, but then instantly, as we are rotating that ball around the defense quickly, he knows he needs to get really quickly out on that right-hand side. This means that we can kick the ball very quickly all the way over to him, like we keep saying with our wingers, but more importantly, what this means is that Bukayo Saka can go wherever he wants. This is where you see Saka really take up some central areas. There's a few he takes up in this game which are really interesting. There's one where we have a break and he picks it up in space in the central area and actually should just rotate that, turn around and go to Timber, who would have a one-on-one and be able to probably get a ball into a Woklz, although that's not necessarily what Timber is the best at. And we don't do it too much to make it predictable, but there's a few times where this will be necessary. And a lot of the time when Timber's in these positions, he will bring the ball down, he'll pass it along and make that sort of simple pass. He's not necessarily going to be someone that drives the issue, but it is just about creating that space for Saka to do what he wants and get more areas to pick up the ball, which I do think was quite interesting. But I will say, in these attacking areas, something that I've noticed with Timber over the last couple of months, but especially in this game, was that he is very quick on release when he needs to be. Now, it's really weird because when Timber's in defensive areas, he's a little bit slow sometimes to make passes. He maybe takes a little bit too many touches, and then will kind of just shift the ball around when he wants to. But when he gets into that final third, there has definitely been an emphasis on him being much quicker and much more assertive with the ball. He picks the ball up. If players are in the channel, I think there's one where Rice actually moves into that position for once, and he instantly puts the ball into him and tries to create. This is the thing with Timber. He will make these passes that kind of look a little bit simple, but it does create risk. He believes in players that will keep the ball even if there's a few around him, and although sometimes that risk isn't necessarily worth it, he seems to have a good idea of when it is and when it isn't, so I trust his knowledge in that moment. But it isn't just that. As soon as Arsenal win the ball back and there is a little bit of space there, he is willing to put that ball into the channel, into the space for other players. He's got a great passing level. We all know how great it is, and I think something that really showed that was the assist that he got in this game, that quick passing notion. Now, funny enough, this wasn't the first time he did this exact same pass in this game. He picked the ball up on the right hand side a couple of minutes before it, I think about 10 minutes, and tries to shift the ball down the sideline for Saka. This is where there's space there. Woklz unfortunately makes the same run as Saka, which we've spoke about in the Woklz video, but the defender does well to just stick out a foot on the floor and put it out for a corner. But it was a good weighted ball nonetheless, and it just didn't reach the players. Now, this exact same move is where we get the assist. He's in this more overlapping position in this role. Arsenal obviously give the ball away with Neri was inside the channel, but obviously yet again, like I want to mention, there was a lot more emphasis of going down the middle more, and I think we had a lot more players in the middle more, which opened that space out wide. And then when Zubimendi quickly puts the ball into Timber, that pass is brilliant into Saka. The weight is perfect, the execution, and it is a risk passing. You know, there was a few times in this game we had them same opportunities, and we've had them same opportunities to make the ball through for our players, and we just haven't. And sometimes you just need someone that is just going to understand when it is the best time to do it, even if it doesn't come off. But obviously it does come off here. Brilliant pass through, and Saka ends up putting it into the top corner. Now, while that was some of the great attack and work he did, I also think in terms of looking at how he scored goals and how he was so important for this game, we have to look a little bit at the pressing as well, because he is a major component to our press. Now, usually what we do with Timber is kind of put him on the winger or the fullback in between these players and make him sort of have to go to this player when the ball is launched forward. Now, what this usually happens is Saka is in these sort of shadow areas in between maybe the fullback and the centre back, and what you'll see most of the time is this kind of is a bait to be like, don't go for the fullback, and he ends up just going for the centre back, while when this ball goes over the top, Timber is supposed to cover that area. Now, a few times you'll see in this game where he goes to cover that area, he doesn't quite get there in time, and this is because unlike before, we were actually setting him a little bit deeper than he has been in other games. Instead of being in this position where he's kind of in the centre waiting, he was a little bit more deeper in these sort of positions, a lot more conservative and helping, and we kind of let Zubimendi mark this midfielder wherever he wanted to go. These guys kind of walked around together the entire time. Now, the reason why this is interesting interesting because it seems like as soon as that ball comes into these sort of areas, which is what we do try to bait and which happens a lot. Now, when it gets over to this ball in these positions, you saw Timber get here and then them kick the ball quickly. But something that was also going on in these areas was Saliba was pushing up really far down this right-hand side and covering Nonto, which was the actual winger. Now, Nonto might even be in these positions sometimes to give this overlap. Now, Saliba is super good in this area to cover the ball and help him with it. But the thing is with Saliba as well is that he holds off players in these positions and Timber could come back and recover and win the ball. And what I will say is that Timber in these areas down the width sort of corner of the pitch, he is insane. His tackling is so good. We've talked about how great his tackling is before, but his ability to kind of reach his leg around players very calmly and very assertively, wins the ball back easily. And there's a few times he does this in really big moments. There's one he does on the corner flag, an attacking moment in the second half. There's also loads he does down this corner where Nonto actually tackles him originally and he wins the ball back brilliantly and gets us back on the break. And not only if you've got players like Saliba, people like Zubimeti there helping in good areas, these are players that are there to delay. And as soon as that ball is kind of down this wing, we are there to control it with good tacklers. And a reason why I wanted to mention that was because the aggressive nature of Timber in this game really helps. And in terms of long balls as well, his ability in the air is incredible. Now, Jurrien Timber is one of the main people that we look for from crosses. When Gabriel was out of the team when we played United, he ended up scoring his first goal for the club from that header from a corner. And the entire time that he might not be the tallest player, and even with his first goal in this game, you're going to hear the commentators say that he is ultimately incredible in the air and his leap is insane. Now, not just from the goals, it's from defensive areas as well, which is more important. He is really good at heading the ball cleanly in the air, but it's also about the calmness he has all the time. There's defensive areas where he heads the ball into Saliba, recycles play easily, and there's plays where he can head the ball and get us on the attack quickly as well. You know, he's not as good as Gabriel, but considering his height, his leap is insane, and he's definitely one of the most assured headers that we have in the team. The goal, I don't want to overanalyze because I think that it gets too overanalyzed our corners, but ultimately sometimes we just use a lot of baits in there, unpredictable nature because anyone can really score a header in our team, it feels like, and we just put a really good ball in the danger zone. He sneaks in there, he does a brilliant flick into the far post, getting in there to help the team, and that's exactly what we needed. And that is basically the same as the second goal, even though this one is even less analysis because it is literally just a scrappy goal. Rice puts it in, he actually goes straight again to Timber's head, where Timber just heads it into the guy in front of him, and then it ends up bobbling around. Calafiori hits it up, and Timber ends up getting a foot in to put it in the net. And now I wanted to say the reason why I'm saying he is underrated is because I feel a lot of people kind of put him down for his attack and work, not being that flashy, really quick overlapping player like a Mascara or a Ben White, but he still offers a lot for us in the attacking area. And ultimately, he is a very good player. I think facilitator for Saka a lot of the time, and they have learnt off each other really well. Now let's go through some of the stats he had in this game. Now, he only played 64 minutes, got 2 goals and 1 assist, but had 3 total shots. And you can see they're all from these sort of corner situations, so close to the goal. Insane passer, 33 out of 36, because he knows when to do the right passes. But also 2 chances created. I mean, the XG is obviously going to be high because of the goals that he scored. But in attack, look at the effect he still had. 2 out of 2 long balls. You know, he tried to dribble, it didn't work. But 5 passes into the final third, 4 touches in the opposition box, 57 touches overall, so he had big influence everywhere on the pitch. And in defense, he still helped. 6 defensive contributions, 1 recovery, 2 interceptions, and 1 out of 4 tackles won, which seems unfair for some of the tackles that he actually did were amazing. And in duels, he wins most of them all the time. Aerially, he's perfect. Ground, he is a really good fighter and physical, and always makes it tough for players even if they get past him, which makes him a key player for this team. And I do think Jurrien Timber is one of them players that doesn't really get the recognition he deserves, especially outside of Arsenal fans, but he is one of the best players we have in this squad. And attitude and everything he does when he's fully fit, this guy is insane. Now let me know what you guys think in the comments about Jurrien Timber, and if you like this video, please go watch my video from earlier and yesterday if you care about any more analysis on this game. Thank you guys for watching, see you in the next one.